Last week, we reported the bombshell news that Robert Wagner has been named a person of interest in the death of his wife, legendary actress Natalie Wood.
Although Natalie Wood's death was deemed a tragic accident, startling new evidence contradicts that claim. Screams were heard by witnesses. The story of her husband was constantly evolving. Bruises that did not correspond with the established timeline were discovered. And hidden deep within her, she was never able to escape the dark Hollywood secret of her past. What caused the delay in the investigation? Why were well-known names kept safe? And why are people saying this now, over 40 years later? Finally, the truth has come to light, and it's worse than anyone could have predicted. Keep an eye out. Who was Natalie Wood, Hollywood's golden girl? She was Hollywood's golden girl, beaming on magazine covers, grinning on red carpets, and dazzle moviegoers in theaters. However, beneath Natalie Wood's flawless exterior was a secret realm of suffering, dominance, and terror. The world was horrified by her unexpected demise at 43. However, what is even more startling is that the reality of what transpired that evening has been interred for more than 4 decades. Why did Natalie Wood fear dark water so much? Why has she ever expressed to a friend her belief that her spouse would kill her? And why has nobody ever been held responsible after decades of rumors? Natalie Wood's life began in the midst of adversity. The name Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko was born in San Francisco on July 20, 1998. She was the daughter of Nikolai and Maria, who were immigrants from Russia. They left their country of origin, seeking a better life, but they were accompanied by financial difficulties. Maria, her mother, started to believe that tiny Natalie was the family's means of escaping poverty. When Natalie was 4 years old, Maria encouraged her to pursue acting, initially in little parts, then into the rigorous realm of child celebrity in Hollywood. It wasn't a kind greeting. On the movie set, Maria tore a butterfly apart in front of Natalie because she was unable to cry at the appropriate moment, causing the youngster to experience real distress. For the camera, it worked, although it was a harsh incident that would shape Natalie's relationship with her mother and her career in many ways. Despite the emotional upheaval, Natalie's innate brilliance was undeniable. She wasn't just a charming face on TV, she possessed a unique talent for fusing purity with intense emotional passion, making her unique despite the abundance of child stars in Hollywood. Her breakthrough occurred at the age of 8. She played the smart game in Miracle on 34th Street. A cynical young girl who questioned Santa Claus's existence. Her position made her a household name. And began what would become a decades-long career. However, the people perceived only the brilliant, joyful exterior. Few were aware of the lengthy workdays, ongoing performance pressure, and the tiresome task of striking a balance between celebrity and education. Natalie struggled to shed her child star persona as she got older. Her Rebel Without a Cause, in which she co-starred with James Dean, was a turning point. As Judy, Natalie's performance for the troubled kid, who was battling loneliness and love, was so unvarnished and genuine that, at the age of 17, she was nominated for an Oscar. She was suddenly a genuine artist rather than a kid actor. After that triumph, she landed parts in West Side Story as Maria, Splendor in the Grass, the young Puerto Rican woman enmeshed in a tragic love tale, where she played a girl who was struggling with mental illness and heartache. She was in both roles. Outstanding range of emotions and cemented her as one of Hollywood's most brilliant actors. Natalie appeared to have it all to the outside world: talent, fortune, notoriety, and a romance worthy of the silver screen. Her relationship with actor Robert Wagner made news. Once, she had as a child, she promised her mother that she would marry him someday, and she did. They merged into one. The wedding of one of Hollywood's most famous couples was hailed as a dream come true. However, as is sometimes the case in the entertainment industry, appearances were deceptive. Natalie's life was closely monitored behind the cameras, initially by her mother, then by the studio system's demands, and then by her public's expectations. Picture. As a child, she worked long hours, up to 12 hours a day at times. Every day of the week. Despite becoming more independent as an adult, she was nevertheless constrained by the roles she was given and the reputation she needed to maintain. She yearned for artistic freedom and privacy, but she rarely gets it from Hollywood or those closest to her. Among the most unsettling and obscure details regarding Natalie Wood's life was her profound fear of black water that paralyzes. This was more than a passing worry. When I was younger, according to Natalie's mother, a clairvoyant had informed her that she would drown to death. The prophecy plagued her throughout her lifetime. She shunned swimming because she was afraid of open water. I never acquired the confidence necessary to operate boats. However, destiny, or even something more sinister, would one day put her in the same circumstances she feared most, on a yacht, in bad weather, at night. The case is shaken by new testimony, developments in 2024 to 2025. After more than 4 decades, Natalie Wood's death case has recently been completely upended. 2 other eyewitnesses have appeared in the last year. Forward, and their assertions are startling. People claim to have heard Natalie Wood yelling for assistance and being attacked the night she disappeared from the Splendor yacht. A 17-year-old man has one of the most incredible new voices. When Natalie passed away, he was a deckhand in the area and, for many years, his story was disregarded or ignored. However, he is now speaking up. As per his assertion, he vividly recalls hearing a heated debate aboard the Splendor, which was followed by a distinct sounds of a distressed woman's cries. He remembers hearing someone beg for assistance, the sound of objects being knocked over, followed by an abrupt, icy quiet. These fresh allegations are further supported by Marty Rulli, the investigative writer who has devoted several years to learning the truth concerning Natalie Wood's passing. Rulli's next book, The Devil She Knew by Natalie Wood, is already igniting legal and societal controversy. She makes an argument that there is sufficient fresh evidence for the authorities to warrant revisiting the case and holding a grand jury inquiry. This would enable a thorough judicial examination of the evidence, under oath, has the authority to force testimony, which has never been done correctly in this case. However, Marilyn Wayne, a woman who was anchored on a nearby boat that night, makes what may be the most terrifying admission. Marilyn has maintained for a long time that she heard a woman's frantic pleas for assistance, a voice constantly yelling, "Help me, I'm drowning, someone please assist me." What makes Marilyn's story even more unsettling is a confidential statement Natalie is said to have made to her, "Wagner is going to kill me." If accurate, according to them, Natalie was terrified of her husband as well as the sea. How is it possible that Robert Wagner is still free after all this time? That's one of the main issues that still plague the case today. Once adored as a Hollywood star, Wagner was formally designated a person of interest in February of 2018 by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. However, in spite of this designation and growing public opinion, he has never been charged with anything. He has continuously declined to assist with investigators, refusing to participate in interviews and evading direct inquiries regarding significant events that occurred that evening of Natalie's passing. Would a suspect be permitted to stay this protected in any other situation? Is this untouchable? Lieutenant John Corina and other investigators have made public statements that other witnesses' accounts and Wagner's version of events diverge. This many people think the probe should be formally reopened because of the discrepancy at its core. The delayed search and rescue response is another problem. The evening Natalie vanished, it took until approximately 3:30 in the morning, more than 4 hours, to notify the Coast Guard. Hours after her last sighting. The rescue boat's captain, Roger Smith, who ultimately retrieved Natalie's body and later acknowledged that he wasn't contacted until 5:11 a.m., almost 6 hours after she vanished. This massive delay is no small matter. Every minute counts in a drowning situation. After only a few minutes, survival chances drastically decline. In chilly water. What caused the alarm to go off so late? And who decided to hold off? Natalie's autopsy revealed physical evidence that adds even more intricacy. At the time, at point 1, her blood alcohol content was found to be 4%, and she also had evidence of painkillers and motion sickness medications in her bloodstream. These drugs probably impair her ability to coordinate, which makes it far more difficult for her to live once in the water. But additionally, the autopsy revealed several bruises on her face, arms, and legs, injuries suggesting were incompatible with a straightforward unintentional fall, according to many forensic specialists. In 2012, her death certificate was amended by the Los Angeles Coroner's Office to include the considering the potential for foul play. The cause of death was listed as drowning and other undetermined factors. A fantasy and fear-based marriage. When Natalie Wood first saw Robert Wagner, she was just a young child. She was 10 years old when she informed her mother that one day, while pointing to a picture of him, she would wed him. It seemed like a kid's dream to many. However, only a few years later, it came to pass. Natalie started dating Wagner when she was 18, and by December 28, they were married in a lavish wedding in Scottsdale, Arizona, in 1997. Though the media loved them. They were hailed as the golden couple of Hollywood, two stunning, gifted celebrities who appeared to have it all. However, fissures were already beginning to appear behind the scenes. Natalie and Wagner's marriage was both fascinating and frightening because of the massive disparity between one's private realities and public persona. Although the media depicted them, insiders claimed that although they were the ideal pair, their relationship was characterized by insecurity, control, and bitterness. Despite his own achievement, Wagner was never able to match Natalie's degree of notoriety or recognition. Natalie was by far the bigger star by the early 1960s. Great respect from the industry, leading roles, and Oscar nominations. In contrast, Wagner was primarily regarded as a TV actor and sporadic co-star in films. Quiet tensions between them were exacerbated by this imbalance. There were rumors that Wagner was envious of Natalie's professional success as well as the attention she received. She got it from other men. According to several Hollywood insiders, Wagner has a tendency to be possessive and domineering, keeping a careful eye on Natalie, and harboring animosity toward her male co-stars. However, the most incendiary story, which continues to spark discussion today, was that Natalie found shortly before their first divorce, Wagner was seeing another man. As per certain sources, at their house, Natalie interrupted a private moment between Wagner and another man. A catastrophic incident in Hollywood's conservative environment in 1962. Whether or not the information was accurate, and it's evident that the pair split up in June of that year, and on April 27, 1962, they formally filed for divorce. Following their breakup, Natalie's romantic life continued to be difficult. She was renowned for having a turbulent yet passionate engagement with Warren Beatty, a passionate dispute that was characterized by jealousy and emotions fatigue. She then wed Richard Gregson, a British producer, and the two of them had a daughter named Natasha. In the year 1970. However, after just a few years, even that marriage failed, when Natalie found out that Gregson and her secretary had been having an affair. The treachery was awful. However, it might have prepared Natalie for the most unexpected phase of her love life. Almost 10 years after their divorce, in January 1972, Natalie and Robert Wagner re-established contact. Both were once more unmarried. Natalie and Wagner had split from actress Marion Marshall. Had split up with Gregson. Family members and friends were astounded by how rapidly they reverted to arms of one another. After everything they had experienced together, why would Natalie turn back to Wagner? According to those close to her, she still loved him and thought he was the only man who genuinely comprehended her world. Others said she wished to regain the feeling of security and the sense of belonging she had with him. However, there were other more sinister theories, that following years of heartache and unsuccessful relationships, Natalie was going back to a familiar, if spouse who was defective because she lost faith that happiness could be found elsewhere. Their second wedding took place in July on a yacht off the coast of Malibu and was a small, private ceremony. 19 hours 72 minutes on the 16th. This wedding was private, in contrast to their first, which was attended by celebrities. Intimate and strangely symbolic to some. Natalie has always been afraid of the ocean. Became the scene of a fresh start, or possibly a perilous trap. From the exterior, it was like a fairy tale when they were reunited. Their families were combined. Wagner became Natasha's stepfather, and the two of them welcomed a daughter in 1994. Courtney. For a while, it appeared as though they had discovered the joy they had been lacking. However, individuals in their immediate vicinity noticed indications that the same old trends were coming back. Those who saw Natalie and Wagner's second marriage have spoken of a tense relationship and command. Wagner's possessiveness returned, according to friends, particularly when it came to Natalie's professional life. She was still eager to challenge herself as an actress by taking on difficult roles. However, it has been said that Wagner wished for her to slow down and concentrate more on her family. Additionally, there were reports that Natalie's personal and professional contacts caused Wagner discomfort her male co-stars as well as other males. Some claim that the couple's arguments could be heated and noisy. However, the severity of those disputes was rarely evident to outsiders. One of this story's most fascinating, and intensely personal, elements originates from Natasha Gregson Wagner, Natalie's daughter. Natasha has put a lot of effort into maintain her mother's legacy by creating the Natalie Wood documentary for HBO, What Remains Behind. Natasha talks candidly in the documentary about her recollections of her mother and her conflicted emotions for Robert Wagner, who raised her after the divorce of her biological father. According to Natasha, Wagner was a dedicated and affectionate stepfather who was supporting her through the most trying periods of her life. However, Natasha herself has admitted that she finds it difficult to balance Wagner's two sides, the loving family man she was acquainted with and the one plagued by allegations of being involved in her mother's demise. How do we reconcile these inconsistencies? How is it possible for one man to be both a loving father figure and a person of interest in one of the longest-running unsolved mysteries in Hollywood? The reality might be more intricate than it seems, as usual. A few specialists in domestic abuse and relationship psychology notes that emotionally damaging or domineering conduct does not always appear same from the inside as well as the outside. Those who are close to the situation might not recognize the complete scope of the issue, or they might eventually normalize particular behaviors. It's also conceivable that Natalie herself desired to believe in spite of any conflicts or anxieties. That she and Wagner could find stability and serenity together, that her marriage could succeed. This raises the terrifying query: was Natalie's second marriage a sincere attempt at a second marriage, or was it a perilous resumption of a relationship rife with unresolved conflicts and unspoken threats? The response matters because it influences our interpretation of what happened on November 18, 1981. If Natalie and Wagner's marriage was genuinely content and stable, her passing might be more obvious as a mishap. However, if their relationship was characterized by control, jealousy, and unspoken anxieties, after that, the tone of the events on the Splendor becomes much darker and more evil. The Night on the Splendor, a Tragedy's Timeline. It was intended to be a restful getaway on November 21, 1991. Natalie Wood, her co-star Christopher Walken, her husband Robert Wagner, and the skipper of the boat Dennis Davern departed on the Splendor, an opulent vessel anchored off Catalina Island. A tranquil retreat off the coast of California. However, before the weekend's conclusion, Hollywood's The Death of the Golden Girl would set off a mystery that has persisted for over 40 years. What actually transpired on the yacht in those final hours? What caused the official timeline to never seem to add up? And why did witnesses hear things that none of the passengers sought to clarify? The purpose of the group's journey to Catalina Island was to have a relaxed break while Brainstorm, the movie that Natalie and Walken were co-producing, was being filmed. However, from the beginning, tension was evident. The terrible weather included choppy waters and freezing winds, which made it uncomfortable that the yacht is close to Avalon. Wagner made the decision to relocate the vessel to Two Harbors, a more sedate, remote area of the island where they might enjoy greater seclusion. However, privacy would, as it turned out, simply exacerbate the tensions that were already building inside the group. The four of them walked ashore that night to eat dinner at the popular neighborhood eatery, Doug's Harbor Reef. It was evident from other guests and restaurant employees' reports that the group was drinking heavy champagne, wine, and cocktail bottles, so that when they departed, they were clearly drunk. Witnesses recall the argument between Wagner and Walken at the table, as well as their conversation centered on Natalie's professional life. Known for being direct, Walken allegedly urged Natalie to keep concentrating on her profession, take on new endeavors, and preserve her independence. Wagner appeared upset by the notion, however, and wanted Natalie to put their marriage first. And relatives. This altercation would follow them back to the yacht, laying the groundwork for the subsequent events. The fights allegedly got more heated after they were back aboard the Splendor. Dennis Davern, the skipper of the boat, informed authorities and the media that there was a lot of animosity between Wagner and Walken carries on their contentious conversation. Davern claimed that Wagner was becoming more and more feeling envious and certain that Walken's interest in Natalie wasn't only for work. Wagner himself would then acknowledge that he had grabbed a bottle of wine and shattered it on the table in rage. However, one of the case's primary puzzles is still what transpired after then. The timeline starts to unravel at this point. According to Wagner, Natalie visited that she had gone when he went to check on her after going to bed early. But Davern claims that more was happening. According to Davern, Wagner purposefully postponed sounding the alarm in addition to knowing Natalie was missing. According to Davern, Wagner instructed him not to activate the searchlights in order to avoid disturbing other vessels, and not to immediately call the Coast Guard. This delay would turn out to be crucial. When submerged in cold water, Minutes can be used to quantify survival time. Why, then, was there a difference of more than 4? How many hours passed between Natalie's last sighting and the Coast Guard's call? In the meantime, John Payne and Marilyn Wayne, a couple, were aboard a nearby boat, staying the night. Marilyn heard a